心有佛法，天地就宽，六世纪将祈福周全，相继杀人心，会有杀人，善人一定能结善缘。
Now my hand slides down, and where are we at?
I've been teaching fighting techniques to government agencies for more than 15 years, including the U.S. Marines, U.S. Marshals, U.S. SWAT teams, and U.S. Navy SEALs.
You can stop me. I go here, and then I go here, and then I can go here or here.
Nearly all the techniques I teach are banned in the sport of mixed martial arts.
I can control the direction of the muzzle. You guys see that?
These are some of the most effective and damaging moves you could use in a real-life situation, be it in self-defense,
I'm here.
on the street, or in war.
Right, and just jump here. Now you're going to knee, go back, and then rip. And the gun comes out. Good.
This is life or death for these guys, and I'm honored to share this knowledge.
See him up though, Jay. See him up though. Oh, yeah. Go on, do it again. And again. That's right. That's it. Power.
James, he was a very lively child, but hard to control.
His teacher said to us, I'm finding it difficult to cope with him because he is so not aggressive, he is so lively, yes, I think that's probably the better word. So I took him to one of the training sessions of Aikido, which is a very hard style of karate. It's a bit more controlled and structured. It's calmed him down. From then on, he took the karate to heart.
Bruce Lee was his hero as a child, and he had big posters in his bedroom.
Like a lot of boys, I dreamed about becoming a kung fu master who could fight off bad guys in any situation. But when I was a teenager, I got attacked on the streets and beaten up, coming face to face with the reality that all those choreographed karate routines I spent years practicing were completely useless. Then I found out that the same thing happened to Bruce Lee when he was my age, launching him on a quest to search for truth in combat. Lee went on to study a wide range of martial arts, taking only the best parts of each discipline. His philosophy was simple: research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. Armed with this philosophy, I vowed to follow in Lee's footsteps. 15 years and 5 black belts later, I was given the opportunity to put my training to the test. Then I got injured. I was sparring with a future heavyweight champion and tore ligaments in both of my knees. Unable to teach or train for at least 6 months, I spent more than 1,000 hours studying peer-reviewed science on recovery and nutrition, looking for any advantage I could find to get back on track as quickly as possible. That's when I stumbled across a study about the Roman gladiators.
The gladiator graveyard from Ephesus is the only one with a significant number of individuals buried there. Archaeologists recovered the remains of at least 68 gladiators. There have been more than 5,000 bones analyzed for the study. We found in the cross-section of the bone very high bone mineral density, which indicated intense training and high-quality diet to build up strong muscles and strong bones. This diet gave the gladiators the nickname Hordeari, which means beans and barley muncher. We know different food sources give different amounts of strontium in the bones. High strontium levels in vegetarians, low strontium levels in carnivores. If there is low strontium in the sample, the flame will stay blue. If there is high strontium levels, it will change from blue to red. The gladiators were predominantly vegetarian.
This totally blew my mind. The gladiators were highly prized fighters who got the most advanced training in medical care in the Roman Empire. To think that the original professional fighters ate mainly plants went against everything I had been taught about nutrition.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Superman. Does Superman eat meat? He does. Oh. Could you tell us what sort of food you eat at tea time when you come home?
Maybe egg and lamb chop.
Do you think all the other children should eat that sort of food?
Yeah.
In order to get strong?
Even in the UFC, this idea that meat makes you tough had become a focal point for one of the most anticipated fights in the history of the sport, between Conor McGregor, the world champion in 2 different weight classes, and Nate Diaz, who accepted the fight with only 11 days' notice after McGregor's original opponent pulled out. McGregor was a big meat eater.
Steak every day for me, steak for breakfast, steak for lunch, steak for lunch, grass-fed, massage, beef, all day long.
Diaz was on a plant-based diet.
Eat your vegetables.
And McGregor had a field day with it.
This man, let's eat, and he's like, I'm a lion in there. Your little gazelle friends are going to be staring through the cage, looking at your carcass and eating alive.
McGregor was feeding off a stereotype that was pretty much universal.
This is like a vegetarian.
I was curious to find out if there were any other elite athletes following a plant-based diet. The first I found was Scott Jurek, one of the greatest ultra-runners of all time. Scott built his career running extreme distances over brutal terrain, conquering the sport's most prestigious races, including the Badwater Ultra Marathon, 135 miles through California's Death Valley, with temperatures reaching 130 degrees.
I was training for Western States 100-mile race, which is like the Super Bowl of ultra marathon racing, and that's when I was transitioning to a plant-based diet. I remember doubting myself, even up to a week before the race, like maybe I should have eaten meat. But I led that race from start to finish and won it for 7 years in a row. And there was no question that the plant-based diet was fueling my victories.
When I met Scott, he was gearing up for the greatest challenge of his career.
When I'm moving, I'm definitely going to be eating.
Having already mastered single-day endurance events, Scott was now trying to become the fastest person ever to run the entire Appalachian Trail, a distance of 2,200 miles.
My goal is to break the record, 46 days, 11 hours. Good amazing. 2 marathons a day over technical terrain, average of 11,000 feet of climbing and 11,000 feet of descent every day, back to back to back to back. Completely beyond anything I've done before.
As Scott hit the trail, I was confused about how his meat-free diet could possibly give him enough energy. So I reached out to Dr. James Loomis, a team physician who is part of 2 championships, a World Series, and a Super Bowl.
What I found in the locker room was some pretty outdated ideas about nutrition. You would go to a pre-game dinner with the football team and you would see this spread. There would be steak and chicken, very much protein-oriented, because their perception was that the protein is what sustains their energy. But in fact, that's not the case. The actual energy for exercise comes mainly from carbohydrates in the form of glycogen that we store in our muscles. And when we sacrifice those carbohydrate calories for protein calories in our diet, what ends up happening is you will develop really chronic carbohydrate or glycogen depletion. And what does that lead to? Well, it leads to chronic fatigue and loss of stamina.
I wanted to know how this whole meat gives you energy thing got started, and traced it back to the 1800s when a famous German chemist hypothesized that muscular energy came from animal protein, and that vegetarians were incapable of prolonged exercise. Liebig's beliefs were so widely accepted that they even inspired the USDA's first protein recommendations. By the time science proved his theory false with the discovery that hard-working muscles run primarily on the carbohydrates found in plants, it was too late. People all around the world had already bought into Liebig's ideas about meat and energy. But not everyone was convinced. As early as 1908, plant-based athletes became their first Olympic gold.
Are you still sticking to your vegetarian diet now? Very rigidly, yes. And you find that benefit to you, do you? Personally, I wouldn't do it.
I changed my diet to a vegan diet, and I took all of my personal best at 30 years old.
And there were current Olympians, too. Morgan Mitchell is the 2-time Australian 400-meter champion.
It's tough, the 400, I won't lie. The first 200 is pure speed, and then the last 200 it shows who's got that speed endurance training in their legs. And obviously the last 50 you've just got to pray because last 50 is hitting hard. You need to be able to hold that endurance.
She also represented Australia at the 2016 Summer Olympics.
A lot of people had doubted me when I first became vegan, but my energy levels increased incredibly. And my iron, my B12, everything that people said would become deficient were amazing. I thought, I'm going to make sure I'm beating them all on this track. I mean, we're all friends, but it was pretty cool to finish my Australian domestic season undefeated. And to win the Nationals was obviously that sort of cherry on top.
There was also Dr. Bout, an 8-time USA national cycling champion and 2-time Pan American gold medalist.
My event in track cycling requires a massive amount of explosive power. First of all, we have to get off the line, and we're starting from a dead start with one gear. We have to be able to move that mass, that weight, off the line and get it up to speed within 3/4 of the length of the track. My training regimen involves 6 days a week, climbing mountains up and down for at least 4 and 5 hours a day, hard track sessions, and then big gym sessions. I grew up in Kentucky, so that's the land of casseroles and barbecue and meat. So when I transitioned over to an entirely plant-based diet, I wasn't sure if I was going to survive. And I actually became like a machine. I got up from being able to move about 300 pounds on the inverted leg set to moving 585 pounds, 60 reps, times 5 sets.
To lose that kind of weight, you need more than just energy. You also need strength. In other words, protein. I just couldn't believe that doctors, or anyone for that matter, could get enough protein using only plants.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions in sports nutrition is that we have to have animal protein, in a particular meat, to get big and strong and perform at a high level. That's just clearly not true. All that protein that you get when you eat a steak or a hamburger, where did it come from? It came from the plant with the calories.
I was surprised to learn that all protein originates from plants. Cows, pigs, and chickens, it turns out, are just the middlemen. In fact, the largest study to compare the nutrient intake of meat eaters with plant eaters showed that the average plant eater not only gets enough protein, but 70% more than they need. Even meat eaters like me get roughly half of their protein from plants. But athletes need more protein than most people do. So I crunched the numbers from the study and realized that based on the amount of calories I was eating, I'd still be getting more than enough protein to build and maintain muscle. For example, 1 cup of cooked lentils or a peanut butter sandwich has about as much protein as 3 ounces of beef or 3 large eggs. But what about the quality of the protein? I'd always heard that plant-based protein was inferior.
Proteins are strings of amino acids, and there are some amino acids our bodies can't make. Those are the essential amino acids. So we have to get them from food. And one of the arguments about animal-based proteins being superior is that plant-based proteins aren't complete, so you're not going to get all the amino acids, and that's a fallacy as well.
Again, I was surprised to discover that every single plant contains all the essential amino acids in varying proportions. And when it comes to gaining strength and muscle mass, research comparing plant and animal proteins has shown that as long as the proper amount of amino acids are consumed, the source is irrelevant. This all sounded great in theory, but all the athletes I've met so far were pretty lean. If getting lots of protein without animal foods really wasn't an issue, where were all the big guys? Hendrik Ferris was the only male weightlifter to represent the United States at the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games.
Underside weightlifting is from the ground to overhead, and one of two explosive movements, the most explosive movement that can be done. When I made the switch to a plant-based diet, people they were like, I don't know how you're going to lift that much weight, and you're not going to be eating anything, you're not going to eat grass, like how are you going to be strong? I brought myself to my 3rd Olympic Games, you know what I'm saying? I broke 2 American records. I won the Pan Am Games. I was like, man, like I think I should have done this a long while ago. Like, why didn't I research this before?
And Hendrik wasn't alone. 5,000 miles away, I found another strength athlete named Patrick Kabunian. Patrick is one of the strongest men on the planet, with multiple world records, including the front hold, the peg lift, and the log lift. How could one of the world's strongest men be so powerful, eating only plants? No meat, no milk, no eggs.
Most of the training I do at home because it's just more practical. Someone asked me, how could you get as strong as an ox without eating any meat? And my answer was, have you ever seen an ox eating meat? I stopped eating meat in 2005. Up to that time, I was 105 kilos. And now I'm 130 kilos. Also at the same time, I set like 4 world records. So when I stopped eating meat, I got stronger and bigger.
Good. So you go home here?
Yeah. Really take care of your back should really be like.
At 700 pounds, I could not move the yoke at all. It felt like it was bolted to the ground. And that was just his warm-up weight. It's hard to fathom how strong Patrick really is. It's almost superhuman. When I met Patrick, he was training to break the world record for the heaviest weight ever carried by a human being. break that record, Patrick would have to carry 1,224 pounds. That's the weight of a horse. The distance is 33 feet.
The thing with the yoke is, if you really go insane with the weight, when you do a step and all the weight is on the ground, it sometimes feels like your bones could just break. It's probably one of the most terrifying things that we do at strongman events.
心有佛法真的救活60吉祥祈福周全相信他无心会有善果善人一定能结善缘